Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I'm honored to have Mark Lachance with me. Mark is the CEO of Maxi Media. And as we talk today, I think one of the things you're going to hear is how throughout a story, you're going to have highs and lows, but it's how you bounce back that gets you to where you're going next. So, Mark, thanks so much for being on today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, with your story, there was a competitive nature at a very young age. Growing up, you and your family played a lot of hockey. So, talk a little bit about having siblings and rivalries and getting some competitive juices going.
Well, we're a pretty competitive family, that's for sure. So, one of my brothers was actually drafted by the New York Islanders, fourth overall. Played 13 years in the National Hockey League. My other brother was drafted by the St. Louis Blues in the fifth round or sixth round, and he played pro hockey for about 10 years. Never played in the NHL, but he had a pretty cool career. And there, that left me the what do I call it? The black sheep of the family. I never played any professional hockey or even got to a high level. And my claim to fame in hockey is I played for about a month at Bentley College, which is now Bentley University. It's Division One, but I played. So I
Yeah.
guess I played D1, but anyway, not really.
Now, with that, and having brothers that are playing at a high level, and also you wanting to compete, talk a little bit about just some of the life lessons that you learned playing hockey that now as an adult you can reflect back on that you're thankful for learning something in a sport.
Well, look, I know that I'm a playoff performer, so
Mm.
anytime there's I won't say I'm necessarily a regular season performer. If you're a hockey fan, Phil, I can go back to a guy by the name of Glenn Anderson. Whereas this guy, he won, I think, 6 Stanley Cups, something like that. But the regular season, he was kind of invisible. But in the playoffs, he was the best player out there. So
Mhm.
that's why I like to say I'm a wartime general versus a peacetime general,
Yeah.
and I thrive under pressure. But I like the playoffs. I like when things are when everything's on the line and things. So I mean, I learned that about myself in sports or in hockey in particular. You learn teamwork. You learn how to compete at a high level. You learn that if you take a day off, well, you're going to be a day behind everybody else. So there's tons of lessons in sports, and I recommend any parent. And I have 2 kids that do judo right now. Any parent to
Yeah.
put your kids in high level sports because it teaches them great things about life.
Yeah. Now, just from a parental standpoint, was there any pressure on you to play hockey based on the fact that your brothers did, or did you kind of feel like, hey, it's up to me to navigate where I would like to go?
Well, I was the oldest brother, so
Okay.
I kind of, I guess, blazed the trail. But
Yeah.
actually, when I was 6, I didn't like it. I didn't
Mm.
really love it, and I quit. And then I came back at, I think it was 8, and I just fell in love with the game. And I was a pretty good player. I was always on the All-Star team up until probably around 14, 15, when my growth just stagnated. I was about 5-0 and 110 pounds soaking wet. So not going to go too far as a hockey player with that size.
Understood. Now, as you're progressing through school, post school, you and a friend start a sports agent business. So, talk a little bit about how that came to be and what you were doing there.
Well, I had, fortunately, I had a brother who was played at a high level,
Yeah.
and so I got to witness some pretty cool. I traveled all over the world, traveled to the 1990 Olympics. He played on the Olympic team. I traveled to Sweden, Switzerland, Czech Republic, all over the place because they were on the national teams, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going there. That's a cool place to go, right?
Yeah.
So I got a pretty good taste of what being in the sports business was like. And then especially when the agents and the scouts were recruiting my brother, and the universities, right?
Yep.
So we had Boston College, Boston University, Harvard, Yale, all these schools that were pitching both of my brothers to go play there. So I thought it was an awesome business to be in. And I went to Bentley College at the time, and all the kids were graduating, going to work for Staples or going to work for State Street Bank. I didn't want to do
Yeah.
any of that. Who the hell wanted to do that, right? So I was like, I want to be a sports agent. I'm seeing what my brother's going through. That's a cool business to be in.
Yeah.
So that's kind of line of work that I went into, but I wasn't full time at the start, because I wasn't a lawyer, and everybody was like, well, we want somebody that has a legal background.
Yeah.
So I had to fight it out as a entrepreneur and work for my father in construction on the side and build my practice. So that's kind of how
Wow.
that started.
Now, talk about that, being willing to do something that maybe you weren't super passionate about the construction side, but it was allowing you to have time and funds to be able to grow the thing you were most passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, if I can be blunt,
Yeah.
being in construction for me sucked. I didn't like it at all. I mean, my biggest why. So, for example, a why is basically a reason for working so hard. Is that I never want to wake up and look outside that window and have that hot blazing sun poke up over the horizon, and you have to be on that black roof. I mean, it's brutal. I don't know where you live, Phil, but I lived in Connecticut at the time, and in the summertime, it could get up to, 95, 100-degree weather,
Wow.
humid, and you're on top of a rubber roof. Yeah, that wasn't fun. I'll tell you that.
Yes. Now, as that business is growing, sometimes business partnerships just don't work out. So, talk a little bit about the transition from running the sports agency into what you did next.
Well, it was about, I think it was around 1998. I had 7 guys in the NHL and 35 in the American and International Hockey Leagues, which are the feeder system into the pros.
Yeah.
And at one time, I lost 2 of my top clients,
Hmm.
literally in the span of let's say a couple months. And I just witnessed 30% of my revenue go out the window. And, but during that, during that time, I was hanging around with a guy in the payments business so think, anytime you walk into a restaurant, you swipe your credit card.
Yeah.
Well, there's a business behind that. And I never knew it, but I knew this guy was making about $30,000 a month back in 1998, which was huge money at the
Yeah.
time, right? Still is today, but
Yeah.
at that time, especially more, it wasn't that much inflation back then, Phil. Now there is. But this guy was rocking and rolling, and he had about 2,000 clients, and he really didn't care if he lost a client or 2 or 10.
Yeah.
And I lost 2 clients, and it put a huge dent into my revenue. So I said, you know what? Not only did I just lose 2 clients that I basically was a glorified babysitter for and did everything for, and they didn't appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. I said, this guy can lose clients and doesn't really matter to him. So, and he's got what's a buzzword for me from then on was recurring revenue.
Yeah.
It's like real estate, right? So if you're in real estate, you understand mailbox money.
Yep.
Same thing, payments, recurring every month. You're pretty sure you're going to get that, that 30,000 every single month. So I fell in love with that recurring revenue business.
Yes. Now, how did the two of you get connected?
The two, myself and you're
And
talking.
your friend that was in the payments business
Oh,
already.
okay. No, no. He was just referred to me by a buddy of mine. He says, I was in Boston at the time. So
Yeah.
a friend of mine that I went to school with said, hey, you got to meet up with a friend of mine. He's, he lives near you. So he lived right, not too far from me. But I liked the business. I liked the fact that he drove the Porsche. He drove a Porsche at 25 years old. So that was kind of appealing to me at the time. I don't really care about that now, but then I did.
Yes. So as you guys are getting to interact, you start learning the payments business from him. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah,
And that gives you some success and you start understanding more and more of the payments business. Now there becomes a point though where a real estate deal becomes really impactful on your personal financial position. So talk a little bit about, learning the payments business and then into the real estate deal.
Oh, you mean the who knew then situation of my life?
That would be the one.
There you go. No, so in that kind of story starts in 2001, where I moved to Montreal, Canada,
Okay.
because I got equity in a company to be the senior vice president of sales. So it was myself and another gentleman, and I saw something in this guy, like just a brilliant individual, but kind of an unpolished gem. Very, let's say, a bull charging a bull in a china shop. Anyway, so my role was to kind of drive the sales, of course. So I hired every single individual from employee number 3 all the way to, I think it was probably employee number 200. So that was my role, was to scale the company and obviously help growth. So we grew it from 2, myself and him, all the way up to 240 people when I left in 2006. And I sold my shares at that time. I had enough. I wanted to try something else. And I was sitting on a pretty good mountain of cash at that time, several $1 million. And then I went all in. We were talking about Vegas, Phil, before. I went all in on black and or red. It's like putting all your chips on red, and it didn't turn out that well. So the point, but I will tell you, the title of your podcast, this fits perfectly because that's the best learning experience I ever had in my life. So I don't know if you want me to expand on that, but that's kind of.
So let's start with the real estate deal itself, how it came to be, and what intrigued you about it to go all in on it. Because once again, you're a savvy businessman at this point. You've run a couple different businesses, you've seen how things are operating. So talk a little bit about what attracted you to it, and maybe in hindsight, one or two things that you wish you would have evaluated differently, or maybe strategies you wish you would have put together to maybe not be so leveraged there.
So the one point is the power of storytelling.
Mm,
Right. So in 2006, I sold my shares in companies called Pivotal Payments.
yeah.
And so I said, look, I'm getting back into the payments business. I understand how to do this. I wasn't ready to be let's say a leader of a company, but I led a division of over 85 people. So now I can run my own shop. I'm ready.
Yeah.
So I was traveling around, I was in Florida trying to raise money. My wife had connected me with a few people down here and all throughout Montreal. So finally, I got an individual that was interested in investing in my payments company. So we were going to cater to the Canadian market, which is well underserved.
Yeah.
At that time in 2006, the banks just deregulated payments because it was all run by or the government. So it was all run by the banks. And now all of a sudden, entrepreneurs like myself could go out and do the same thing they were doing in the U.S. and get clients and service their payment needs. But so this gentleman says, I'm interested, great idea, love it, love it, love it. So I was so excited, I flew back to Canada, and then the phone just went dead, silence.
Mm,
And about 2 months later, I get a call from this gentleman, says, hey, I just so happens I'm in Montreal. Why don't you come visit me at the hotel I'm at? So here's one clue right here. So he was staying at a hotel near the airport, which was a decent hotel, but if you're a mover and a shaker, you're not staying there.
right.
So that would have been the first clue. But anyway, so then when I go to the hotel, we sit down, we have dinner. He flips the script on me. He says, "Look, I was interested in your deal, but I have a better deal that I want to pitch to you." And this deal was sexy. It was investing in a real estate project, northern Quebec. It was the old recording studio called Le Studio. So when you walk into the place, you see all these gold and platinum records all over. So the Bee Gees, the Rolling Stones, David Bowie, Sting, Celine Dion, Rush did all their 6 or 7 albums in that location. The place was gorgeous on a lake, on 200 acres, pristine, totally pristine. He's like, so we're going to buy this place and we're going to build multi-million-dollar chalets and sell them to the Brits. Because at that time, the first of all, the currency, the British pound, was 2 to 1 to the Canadian dollar.
Yeah.
So they were literally buying real estate at half price. And there were 3 other developments, Fiddler Lake, Blueberry Lake, and I forget the other one that had sold out like that. So the idea was to emulate what they did, right? And other red flags came up. Like, for example, when you go to dinner with your business partner and his credit card declines often, that should be a red flag. Or
Yeah.
you walk into his house and he has no furniture in his house. That should be a red flag. Or you put $500,000 into the bank and the week after he's driving a Ferrari, and then you look into the bank and you're $150,000 is taken out. That should be a red flag. Anyway, so so those are kind of the learning experiences that I went through at that time.
Yeah.
But you asked the question of why you're a savvy business guy. Why? Well, a lot has to do with greed.
Mm,
And once you get greedy and you take a pretty big kick to the stomach, which I did. So
no. So looking at that, to your point, you say, Phil, this was a really pivotal moment. Now, the thing that's always interesting about a person's story, though, is when that happens, it doesn't feel like good things are about to come oftentimes. People are like, what the heck? I had just worked so hard to acquire all this, wealth or these dollars, and now I have to go figure it out again. But when you get to that point, talk about bringing yourself out of the emotional funk that you could be in post that, finding out hey, I'm close to bankruptcy, and then rebuilding yourself.
So you mean the emotional funk that I was in, not
Yeah.
could be in?
Yes.
No, so I'm basically sitting on the couch, in depression, anxiety, highly stressed out, bank account next to zero. I had no idea what I was going to do. So for about 6 months, I was in that state, that kind of like, deer in a headlights state. So until one day I finally said, I got to get out of this. And I don't know what it was that, prompted me to pick up a phone and call my buddy and then just get re-energized. But something told me like, listen, man, you're not, not the loser that you are sitting on this couch, for 6 months straight and doing nothing. So I ended up picking up the phone and called my buddy Todd in New York. And he's like, look, wow, he was first of all floored by this story. I didn't tell anybody the story that I was basically bankrupt. But then he said, "Look, just so happens that a guy I know just got the a deal with a Canadian bank, and they own the processing platform. So you have the ability to, pick yourself, and they're looking for a guy to run the operation, and they'll fund it, part of it."
Yeah.
So I'm like, "Okay, that's great, but I don't have any money." He's like, "Just get on the phone and you figure it out after." So anyway, I get on the phone and I called gentleman in New York. Turns out that they did a deal with which bank was it? Which bank? I forget which bank. It wasn't RBC. Was it'll come to me in a second.
Yeah.
Uh, Scotiabank. So they did a deal with Scotiabank, and they basically ran the credit card processing portfolio, had the ability to build a company around it and drive sales. And they were looking for a guy that understood the Canadian marketplace and understood, how to drive sales, and that was perfectly me. But I needed to put in $200,000. So I didn't know. Like I literally probably was down to my last thousand or something like that,
Yeah.
and I from several million down to like almost zero. It was crazy, but I came up with an ingenious idea to sell shares in a company that I didn't own yet, and it actually worked. So I was able to pull myself out of near bankruptcy, out of poverty, and into a situation where I was able to build my equity back up pretty quickly and get out of it. But there are some hairy moments there. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Now, talk about taking action. I think that's super important because, to your point, I was on the couch. I'm depressed. How did this happen to me? Why am I here? But you decided to take action. I think for a lot of people, whoever's listening, they may not be able to relate to, hey, I had this, nice sale of a business and then I invested money, but they may be in a position or a phase of their life where what they need to do is take action to get to where they want to go. So, talk a little bit about just that idea of taking action and helping that get you into your new rhythm.
Well, look, nobody's going to give you anything. That's for sure.
Mm,
Nobody's going to hand anything to you on a silver platter.
yeah.
That's for sure. I mean, the federal government's doing a good job at paying people to stay home right now, but I don't subscribe to that. And especially back then, that wasn't the case. So, but
Yes.
nobody's going to hand you anything. So if you want something, you have to go out and get it. That's just the way it is. And the way you get it is you take action. You pick up the phone, you make calls. So I was afraid to even pick up the phone for a long time, and then finally, I don't know what voice inside me prompted me to do it, but I said, all right, now it's time. So I picked up the phone and made, I think it was, when I was raising cash for the second time to get me the 200,000 necessary to invest in the business. I know it was my 87th phone call. I think I counted them, that I finally got somebody to say, yes, let's do this. So look, taking action is everything, and getting off that couch is everything, and making it happen is everything.
Now, what about your resilience, Mark, allows you to make 87 phone calls and the 87th one be the one, right? I think oftentimes people say, oh, well, I made 10 calls, I made 20 calls, and, it's just not for me. Why did you keep going, or what allowed you to keep going?
Well, when you hit rock bottom, there's nowhere else to go, right? So I knew the payments business. I knew that I had a golden goose opportunity if I could get that cash, and I got it. So it was a golden opportunity, and fell from the sky basically. But it was only because I was got off the couch and made those calls and made things happen.
Yeah, well, there's two things I want to highlight about what you've talked about in just that last little chunk. So, one is the fact that you knew the opportunity was so good, and when your why is big enough, how doesn't matter, right? So the fact that I need to raise 200,000, I don't have 200,000 was not going to be your barrier to this golden opportunity. And so someone listening needs to know that sometimes there's going to be obstacles to the exact thing you want, but if you think creatively, you can get there. The second thing that I would really highlight with what you kind of talked about there is when you restarted the next time, it wasn't starting from scratch, right? You had known the payments business. So it getting up and going with this next business was going to be a quicker time frame than it would have been the first time when you had to learn everything about a business.
Well, I'm going to expand upon that because I write about that in my book. Now it's about leveraging your, let's say, what you have in the bank. So I had a great reputation in the bank. I had made tons of people tons of money.
Yeah.
Like, so for example, it was one of our indirect sales groups that actually ended up investing in this business because I had helped them make tons of money before. So if you do the right things for people, if you work hard for people, make them money, well, at some point they're going to pay you back. And this was one of them. So I guess, leverage your past successes and your past good things you've done to people, and then it'll come back to you.
Love it. Now, as your story continues to progress, Evo Payments ends up being a spot that you become president of. So talk a bit about that business and what you guys are working on there. Once again, payments processing was what you were focused on, but talk about the business and growing that. You had done it before, but talk about growing it this time.
Yeah, well, this was a different payment strategy. I mean, this is a different sales strategy. We had what I call the ultimate sales machine. So I learned this from somebody in Dallas, where they had feet on the street salespeople. So they had a telemarketing team that would book appointments in every corner of the country, literally every corner of the country. And we had hired sales executives in we call them sectors. We broke them down, but you can say every city, every town, every little village.
Yeah.
And we would book the appointment and send the sales executive in there to make the sale. It was a phenomenal business. And, I still think it's actually works today, even though, nobody really answers their cell phone anymore, but I still think the model works today. But it was a phenomenal model. But we had 215 employees total. We had about 100 sales executive across Canada, and we had a telemarketing team booking them appointments, and then sales managers following up on the sales executives appointments. It was ingenious, and that enabled us to get to, we were generating something like, between 300 and 400 sales on a monthly basis, which is a pretty solid business. And that was, building. So you can imagine if 2,000 clients brought X amount, well, we had almost 20,000 clients when we were finally all said and done. So it was a pretty healthy, solid business.
Yes, I would say so. Now, when you're growing that rapidly, though, sometimes it can be hard to contain the growth and actually make it, work for you. And sometimes you start growing that fast and things fall through the cracks. You have a bad hire or two, wrong person, wrong place. Talk about scaling the business and how you guys were able to do that.
Well, as an entrepreneur, when you scale the business, you sometimes, not sometimes, you often hit your limit or hit your brick wall, I'll say. Some people can run an operation of 10 people, no problem. But when you get to 20, 30, 40, it's difficult. Yep. And that's only based on your education or based on your comfort zone. So my limit was 215. That was all I could handle at the time. We could do more now. I will explain that later, but 215 was the limit, only because I call it what's called the entrepreneur's dilemma. Oftentimes an entrepreneur thinks they're the smartest person in the room, thinks they have to be the smartest person in the room, thinks they have to know everything that's going on in an organization. And what you do is, a year and a half into that business, you find yourself sitting in front of your computer with 1,000 unopened emails, basically wanting to jump out the window or quitting the business that got you out of, depression and anxiety and bankruptcy. So that was my case. So in December,
I was going to say, that sounds very personal.
Yeah, that was my case. So this is December 2010. I literally needed help. I needed a coach. I needed a mentor. And I was typing in online business coaching, business mentor. And Tony Robbins kept on coming up. Tony Robbins, boom, boom. And it so happened about a month or 3 weeks later, he had an event called Business Mastery.
Yes.
And so I signed up, and it was $10,000. And at that time I was just getting out of the financial bind. So 10,000 was a lot, but I said, you know what, let's go for it.
Love it.
And biggest learning experience of my life. Basically, you walk in there, you find out you're the problem to your business. And if you're stressed out, you're the issue, you're the problem. And I found out quickly that I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I don't need to know everything that's going on. That's his or her, department. Let them do it. That's
Yeah.
his or her department. So originally I needed to know everything that's going on in sales, marketing, legal, compliance, customer service, telemarketing. I'm like, it is insane until finally I learned, throughout the week that, they broke down every aspect of your business and taught you exactly how to run each department, which in the end is basically hiring the smartest person that understands that space and let them do their job, and getting out of your own way, leaving the ego at the door, letting them do their job, and just managing from I'll call it a spreadsheet even, or at a higher level versus in the weeds. So that was kind of my way of learning, or letting go and letting people run their departments, and the company just took off. So it was an amazing experience, and my stress levels went down to zero. So that was great too.
Now, I when I hear you say that, it wouldn't shock me if a part of you has some walls built up from a trust standpoint, right? After the business, event that had happened not, many years earlier, to be in a spot now running and finding yourself, it's tough to trust somebody entirely with this piece of the business. Talk about, what you did or what allowed you to bring those walls down, start to trust the people that you had in the business, and really fully delegate that instead of, hey, I still need to have my hand in the cookie jar for every decision. Oh,
Yeah, sorry about that. Look, it was two things. It was that event, and then I also joined Strategic Coach with Dan Sullivan, and Dan pounded that home. So Dan teaches you how to build a self-managing business.
yeah.
And you know, so when I walked into this event, he wrote STUFF on the board, and I'm like, did I pay this amount of money to talk about stuff? But anyway, the point is, stuff means if you're running a company, you can't be dealing with stuff. You can't be dealing with, they're not insignificant, but you can't be dealing with, sweeping the bathroom floor. You can't be
Yep.
dealing with, even a customer service call. You have to be dealing with the data. So I had, like I said, 75 people in my call center. And of the 75, we had about 20 customer service. So what am I doing getting all the complaints in my email box versus looking at the drop call ratio, or versus looking at, talk times, or any of those data points. So,
Yeah.
that teaching, or that mentorship taught me or helped me, get out of the minutia and let the people running the shop run the shop.
Yes. Now, the other thing I would want to highlight is the humility it takes to be willing to get the feedback and then apply it, right? You had reached a point in your business where I'm sure you were trying to fight it for a long time of, I don't need this coaching. I don't need someone to tell me how to do it. But eventually you hit that point of like, all right, it isn't working. I'm not getting fulfillment out of this. Something needs to change. So what about your, ego and letting that down? What allows you to take that advice, realize, hey, a portion of the problem is me, right? It's not 100% of the time, or it's not 100% me, but a portion of it is me, and I'm willing to admit that and now move forward.
Well, I picked up a book called Extreme Ownership, and basically the book says there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. And
Mm,
so I really dug into that statement, no bad teams, bad leaders, and dug into the teachings of people that have done it, ahead of me, and spoke to a lot of people that have run big organizations. And do you think the CEO of Microsoft is, taking customer service calls, or I mean, there's definitely not. So if you aspire to build a huge company, or bigger than 215 people, which I do, and I finally have done again, you have to understand how to manage leaders versus managing the employees specifically. So you need to teach the leadership team how to manage their people, and then that's the best way to approach, growing and scaling a business.
yes, that's really good. Now, simultaneously, your wife has a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit as well, and so there's this kind of fitness world that she has decided to start looking at business into. So, talk a little bit about that business starting up, and how it started, and then how it started to grow.
Yeah, well, I was in LA at one point, and then I walked out on the beach in Santa Monica, and I saw literally 400 people on a beach doing a boot camp. And I was like, what's going on here? And then from the beach, they about 70% of them got in their car and went back to a nutrition club to get post recovery nutrition and talk about a nutrition business that they're building. And I was floored by the retention that this they call it boot camp structure had. And then I ended up talking to the guy who created the whole flow, and he told me all about it. What an amazing guy. His name is Mark as well. What an amazing guy. Literally told me how the business works and operates, and we duplicated the same thing in Montreal. And we don't have a beach in Montreal because there's a lot of snow, but we do. You could build an inside facility. So if when my wife ran the facility called Fit Club 24,
Yeah.
where you do a workout and then go into the nutrition lounge, and then talk about building a nutrition business and getting amazing. So that business is all about testimonials, and all about if that person can do it, I can do it. And
Yep.
she lost 30, 40, 50 pounds, I can do it too. And the thing just grew and grew and grew and mushroomed. So that's a cool business. And that was a lot of fun also going to work out at lunch, because the Fit Club was in the building that my office was in, strategically placed, of course.
I, I'll say strategic placement. That's good.
Yeah.
Now talk about a family dynamic when you have two entrepreneurs trying to start a business. I mean, it's hard enough with one person trying to start a business, let alone two
You trying
people.
to get me in trouble, Phil? You trying
I'm trying to get you some brownie points, Mark. When your wife listens to this, you can just sing her praises.
to? No, I mean, especially if you're both type A's, right? That could be a difficult dynamic at some point. But look, you learn from Tony and Dan that you let the type A's run the business.
Mm.
Don't get involved in the minutia, and again, give guidance, give the best guidance you can, and let that person run the department, and good things will happen, right?
Yeah. Now, I also want to just ask a little bit about the support, right? I mean, to have the highs and the lows that you had and had someone there with you the whole time, and then the support for her to want to start something while you're still growing your business. Talk about, that aspect, for those folks that are married or married or with significant others. Talk about having someone that's really in your corner and supports you through all of it, because I mean, we all wish it was, just a straight line journey, but it's, kind of up, down, here, there, everywhere.
Yeah, well, if you have somebody that supports what you do, or believes in the process, then and it's a two-way street. So you have to believe in what they're doing, as well as them believing in what you're doing. I think it's very, very helpful. It's tough, if you walk in the house every day, how's it going, what's going on, and that would be a tough go.
Yeah.
But if you're getting the support and the help at home, then I think it's much, much easier. So I guess the learning from this is that if you have somebody, if you're with somebody that's building something, support them, and and encourage them to be successful, rather than giving stress or negative support, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Yeah. At the end of the day, right? If you're building something, there's enough stress that's already there. And if you don't have the support of someone at home, I mean, it is a very difficult thing to grow, build, and get better at. Whereas if you have that support, it can be that tough day that the support at home gives you, all right, I'll do it the next day. And that could be the day you make the 87th call, right? And so having that support is important.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think she owed me one, because she introduced me to the partner that basically took me down in the real estate game. So she owed me one.
You're dangling that overhead the whole time. This is your fault. You introduced me to him. No. Oh, I love it. So, as you're continue to progress through your businesses, at some point you're doing really well in the business, but you have a gentleman come and pitch you a little bit on a business and say, "I actually can do this more efficiently for you," and that leads into a connection for your partnership into Maxi Media. So, talk a little bit about how that came to be and what you're doing with them now.
Yeah, well, when I sold Evo Payments in 2016,
Yeah.
I then started helping my wife with the marketing, with Facebook ads, and things like that. So I was literally doing the ad buying on Facebook, and I'm
Yeah.
not a me. It's called media buying, right? I'm not a great media buyer, but I at least was able to get somebody to come into the location, sit in front, and have a wellness evaluation, we call them, or a weight loss evaluation for $12.50. That was the cost to get somebody in the location. And after a while, I'm like, look, I don't think I'm good at this. I want to outsource this. I want to get somebody else to do it for me. But nobody, after about 6 or 7 tries, could do a better job than I could, until one day this gentleman named Max came in and literally crushed my numbers. Crushed them from down, it was I think 12.50 down to around $2 a lead, which was phenomenal. I said, "Oh, you're hired, then. You're definitely hired." So, we then struck up a great relationship, and he was a one man shop, just the solopreneur. Didn't really know how to build a great business, but had a great media buying mind. So I said, "Look, I think us partnering together can build something pretty phenomenal, interesting." And so we did. And so what started with 2 people is now close to 300 right now. So we built a pretty sizable organization, and the biggest, actually. We're the largest spender on TikTok in Canada right now, and probably have the biggest creative network in the world. And a creative network means we have creators that are producing videos for us on a regular basis. So we've done something great, and it's been a lot of fun and rewarding.
Yes. So thinking about that and partnering up, sometimes people love to have control of 100% of something small, right? Hey, I at least own everything. I'm making all the decisions, 100% owner, but it's a smaller pie. Other times people say, well, I'd rather have a 20% or a 50% ownership, but of a much bigger pie. Talk about that in this relationship where, hey, us partnering up meant that there's going to be a splitting of 100%, but together we could have something much bigger than either one of us would have on our own.
Well, let's put it this way. I didn't really understand how to media buy, even though my numbers were decent, better than 7 of the 8 that I brought in, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I understand marketing, I understand sales, so I can at least figure that out. But I didn't understand really the nuances of a Facebook platform, or how media buying or social media really intrinsically work. And he did. But I did know how to I do know how to scale businesses. I do know how to hire and hyper grow, and what I call blitzscaling, or what the book blitzscaling calls blitzscaling. Anyway, so I think it was a great union. And oftentimes you've got the ego center CEO or founder that doesn't want to give away anything, and you're just going to stay small because, look, you're missing skills. And even today, right, you've got to give away a piece of the pie if you want to grow bigger. You just have to, because you don't have all the skills. You don't know everything,
Yep.
right? I mean, I see you're an MBA, so maybe you do know everything, but
Nah, I don't. I'm learning.
but
Oh,
you have to look. You have to make sacrifices, and if it's sacrifices in equity to get to the next level, that's what it is.
yep.
Unless you want to stay small. So
Yeah. Now, TikTok, obviously one of the newer of the social media platforms, but just throughout kind of the COVID era, really exploded. What made you guys decide that that was the avenue that you really wanted to pursue hard at that point?
well, we started as a Facebook shop, and if you're a media buyer in Facebook, how can I say it nicely? You know how fun it is dealing with Facebook. Let's put it that way. It's not a great experience, and they oftentimes shut off accounts for whatever reason. Zuckerberg woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and he says, kill these types of business models. So anyway, we woke up one morning in 2019, late 2019, and literally Facebook had shut down our account. So we were like, we're out of business. So we
Yeah.
need we need we need to make moves right now. And TikTok we were actually testing. We were in the process of testing TikTok. They had just launched, beta tested their ads platform. And so you can call it right place, right time, whatever you want. But we then went all in on TikTok and crushed it right out of the gate. So we took what we learned on Facebook and applied it to TikTok. And over time, our Facebook account got reapproved, and back, our status was reapproved. So all of a sudden we had 2 platforms that we're doing well on, and then introduced Snapchat, Google, and rest is history. But I think you need to, in marketing, you need to test everything. You need to be, have your eyes open, because anything can change, and everything does change all the time.
Yep. That's good. So that leads us to writing a book, and it's called The Lucky Formula. Talk a bit about, what inspired you to write a book, what allowed you to take time out of your day because there's nothing easy about writing a book. Hey, as you're growing businesses, take time out to write the book.
Well, a friend of mine had been peppering me forever. You have great stories. Look at all your successes, your failures. You were in sports, you got crushed in real estate, you came back, blah, blah. You should write a book. You should write a book. And I was always fighting him. And then COVID hit. And I'm like, this world is insane. Why not write a book? What the hell? What the heck? Right.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of prompted me to, because the things I was seeing in COVID, I'm like, none of this makes sense. So you know what? I'm going to be a best-selling author. That doesn't make sense either. So let's go for it.
Yes. Now,
So
the title of the book, The Lucky Formula, is not, hey, this is how you find luck, right? But it talks about, is luck really the reason people have success? So talk a little bit about the premise of it, and we'll encourage people to get the book, The Lucky Formula.
that's cool. If you know my last name, Lachance or Lachance, it actually means luck. So I'm qualified to write a book about luck because that's what my name means, right? So,
Yeah.
but it doesn't, in this case, it doesn't mean luck at all. It means success. So, the lucky formula is a formula that's, it basically you're stacking the odds in your favor to cash in on success. And the example is, so when I moved to Montreal in 2001, myself and the founder, we would go to lunch every single day, right? And we'd go to lunch and we'd have a big lunch along with a dessert, bar none, every single day. I'd have a big whatever, be it cake or tiramisu or whatever it is. And then I'd get back to my office and I'd be crashed on my desk for at least a half an hour to an hour. Like I literally. So fast forward to today, where I understand that eating a high caloric lunch with lots of sugars, fats, and salts doesn't really keep your energy level 10 on 10. So today my energy level is 10 on 10. So what I mean by stacking the odds in your favor, well, if you're a 2 on 10 after lunch, is there any chance that you're going to make that sale, pick up that call, make that relationship? The answer is no. But if you're 10 on 10 all day long, there's a way better chance that you're going to get that lucky break,
Yeah.
right? So that's one of them. So nutrition, positive mindset, or the way you speak to people, right? So
Yeah.
to give you an example, like one of my editors I was driving in the car one day, and he's like, I don't get how positive speaking or positive narrative when you speak to people helps. So I started saying, well, Alex, let's take your writing, for example. I think your writing's phenomenal. I think you're one of the best writers I've ever read. I can't put down your books. I can't put down your articles. And you could see him getting all happy. Well, if you speak to people in a positive light like that, over and over and over and over, pretty soon or one day, somebody's gonna like what you say, and as long as it's authentic, you're gonna get, you get what you give, basically. So if you're giving, you're gonna get back.
Yep.
So that's kind of the idea between narrative and, waking up with a purpose, or waking up with affirmations, or, the list goes on. But all of these stacked together can bring back so much, positive momentum to you that you can't help but to be successful.
I love it. I love it. Well, Mark, are there any other pivotal moments that you'd like to highlight in your journey that really stand out as you reflect and say, man, thank God that happened because it ended up leading to where I am today and where I'm going next?
Well, I mean, we touched on the big one, which was the real estate colossal failure. We touched on, me picking up the phone, and getting the deal done with Evo Payments. We spoke about. I would have to say that here's kind of a yes. I will give you this one.
Yeah.
So I write my book, and it sounds like you read it, by the way, Phil. But anyway, I write the book on I guess my secret weapon, and I think the secret weapon to me is meditation. And Tim Ferriss talks about it in Tools of Titans that about 80 to 90% of all the successful CEOs actually meditate.
Mm.
But I'm going to say, why is that a secret weapon? Is because, and I got into it, the first event I ever went to, or first exposure to meditation, was a 10-day silent meditation retreat called Vipassana. Right? It was insane, but
Yeah.
the most transformative event I've ever been to.
Mm.
It really taught you how to control your emotions. And I used to be literally have my emotions on my sleeve, and I couldn't really control myself, control my emotions if I got angry. But this taught you how to do that.
Mm.
And so, to this day, I think that's a pivotal moment or a critical moment in my life, is starting meditation. So what I recommend is doing Vipassana, and then I do another I do two other techniques. Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you know him, I was just at
Yeah.
his event this weekend.
Cool.
And another one is inner engineering, which is a 21-minute meditation technique.
Mm.
Every single day for the last 7 years, have not missed a day. So,
Wow.
I think that's maybe one of the most critical, things that I've done in my life is meditation. So I hope that answered your question.
I love it. Yes. Well, Mark, I want to say thanks so much for sharing your journey. You talk about, the whole gamut, right? Starting off having a competitive nature, at sports and how that's really parlayed, a lot probably to help with some of the successes you've had, but certainly the resilience factor. I always tell people, playing basketball my whole life, there's a lot of times where I'm able to take a sports situation and apply it to a business situation. And that allows me to keep it in perspective. And so I think we would say the same has been true for your career. And so I'm excited to see where you continue to go and all the next businesses or next books that you write. But I want to say thanks again for sharing your journey with the listeners.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was awesome. And can I leave your listeners with a gift?
Yes, please do.
All right, the gift is the lucky quiz or the lucky assessment. And it's
Yes.
basically it allows you to get your lucky score. So on a scale of 0 to 100, it measures. There's a series of questions that tabulates. It helps us tabulate a score for you and gives you your lucky score. So and then it also gives you tips and tricks on how to get your score higher. And you can get that assessment or that quiz at theluckyformula.com/quiz. Again, theluckyformula.com/quiz. And Phil, I hope you take it because I want to see your score. And I'll bet you're going to score pretty high. I feel like you can.
I'm for sure going to take that. I'm going to take that yet today. There is no doubt about it. So I'll have to send you a message afterwards and we can debrief on that.
All right. I love it. Go for it.
I love it. Theluckyformula.com/quiz.
You got it.
Awesome. Well,
Exactly.
thanks again, Mark.
Thanks a lot, Phil.